From sea to shining sea, America's favorite uncle, Bumpkin Bob.
Hey y'all, good morning. This is Bumpkin Bob coming to you from the Bumpkin Media Studios here in beautiful Siloam Springs, Arkansas. Just like every Saturday morning, it's Saturday, October 7th, I do believe. Let's jump right in this morning and get into our announcements. We had two birthdays I want to talk about this week. My daughter turned, and hers was Thursday, October 5th, and coincidentally, an old friend from the trailer park, part of the trailer park clan, Kimmy Marshall, had her birthday the same day, and I will not go into how old she is. So, just, you know how women are, you got to respect the age thing. On sad notes, and I try to do people from and in Arkansas. Ralphie May died yesterday, comedian. I'm sure all of you are familiar with him. He's from Clarksville, Arkansas. Very funny. And I'm going to say something, and the people in my age bracket especially that got Channel 7 and Channel 4 out of Little Rock will recognize this, but Rudy Kazudi and Wowie Kazal, Bozo's your best pal. The guy who played Bozo in Little Rock, Gary Ware, died this week. He was 75. He was actually a handicapper at Oakland Park down there in Hot Springs now. But that's just a big part of the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. If you grew up in and around, you know, the parts of Arkansas that got those Little Rock stations, Bozo was, I mean, there was Bozo the Clowns all over the nation. It was kind of a syndicated thing, but the Bozo here was Gary Ware, and I know that's touched a lot of people's childhoods. Me, for one, always wanted to go on the Bozo show, never got to. I think it would have been pretty cool, but anyway, I'll admit, it hit me a little bit the other day when I saw that. I mean, it's anything that tears at your childhood a little bit, you know what I mean? And I used to love when he would ask kids, especially after I got older, and watch him, he'd ask kids, do you walk to school or carry your lunch? And they'd just get this look on their face like, what the hell is he talking about? And then after I got older, the shit he did or asked kids just cracked me up, because most of them were those kind of questions, and they just confused the living shit out of them. And which reminded me, after I got older, I did the same shit to my kids. Just ask them stuff randomly, off the wall crap, just to confuse the shit out of them, because I thought it was funny. And that's probably where I got that shit. And I used to tell people, you know, you have kids that aggravate the shit out of them. That's the reason you have them. And if you can't aggravate them a little bit and have fun with them, then you're missing out on life. You know, if all you're doing is griping at your kids, or, which reminds me, my daughter showed me a video this week, and this is going right into griping at your kids. My daughter showed me a video this week of a mother walking through Target buying school supplies, and I don't know what it was called, but if you can find that, you need to go to YouTube and watch it, because it cracked me the hell up. She was walking through there talking about being cooped up all year, summer with her kids, and people getting mad about the school supply list because they want stuff for the classroom and for the teacher. And then she was talking about, you know, if this person's willing to take my kid for 8 hours a day and try to teach them something, I'll buy them anything they want. She was even going to buy her a microwave. She's like, she might want her a little snack during the day, so I'm going to get her a microwave. Funniest shit ever. So you need to go over on YouTube and watch that if you can find it. It's just hilarious. And also, back to the aggravating the kids. If you have not watched the stuff on YouTube about Bat Dad You need to go over there and watch that. Because he puts on a Batman mask and talks like he's Batman all the time and just aggravates the living shit out of his kids. It is funnier than hell. And I thought, oh my God, I wish I'd have thought of that when I was a kid. Or when I had kids that young, just to aggravate the shit out of them. And the funny part is you can tell, too, with his wife, that it just pisses her off to no end. She's like, and his dad, there's one part where his dad gets in the car. Funny as hell. So go over there and check those out. You will not be disappointed. Moving on, we've done our announcements. Again, my prayers and thoughts go out to Gary Ware's family and to Ralphie's Mays family. Happy belated birthdays to everybody that we talked about. Something I had talked pretty in depth about at his show before that I have been working on. I don't want y'all to think I had forgot about it, but I was going to try to put together my top 5 Western movies. And I swear to God, the more I think about it, and the more I put lists together, the more movies that I put on that list. It's like, I honestly don't know if I can get it down to my top 5. I'm going to really try so that we can get that posted over there on the webpage. Maybe I can get that within the next week or two, because it's like I'll be having a conversation with somebody and we'll be talking about Westerns and another one or two will pop into my head and it's like, oh man, I forgot about that one. So I am really trying to do that and get that posted. So I'd like to see everybody go over there and post their top 5 Westerns, maybe over there on the Bumpkin Army page if you join that. Because I'd like to hear yours. And I know when I read through those that it's going to bring up other movies that I forgot about even. So it may even make it harder to get my top 5. Man, that's tough to do when you're a Western movie nut like I am. Today's job site tale. Let's move on to that. And we're going to go from the construction job site tales to one that happened when I worked at a hotel over in Eureka Springs. Now, I've been saying ever since we've been doing this that I want to hear your job site tales, and I want to know what's happened that's funny, even if you work in an office or whatever, a dentist office or a doctor's office, or now make sure if you're medical field, make sure it doesn't violate the HIPAA rules. But we want to hear those things. It doesn't matter where you work at. Funny shit happens everywhere, and that's what we're into. Anyway, worked over at a hotel over in Eureka Springs. And I'll tell a funny one, and then I'm going to tell one it's not really funny, but it's just people's mentality sometimes just surprise me. But we had the hotel I worked at had a restaurant with it too. And I worked as night manager and worked on the front desk. And we would have groups coming in that were actually staying at other hotels, but they would book dinner at our hotel, which was not unusual. Happened all the time. Well, we had a senior citizens group come in. They were actually booked and staying at a hotel down the street from us, the Matterhorn. And the general manager and owner actually accompanied them down there to our hotel, and I knew him, and so anyway, they had went in the restaurant and was eating, having their little meal, and me and the Matterhorn's general manager / owner were standing in our front lobby just bullshitting like we normally did. We're just standing there having a good time and shooting the shit, talking about things going on because oh my God, I got a lot of stories I could tell from the hotel. We may tell a couple of them. Well, I'm going to tell one anyway, but I may tell another one. But the senior citizen group's in there eating, and the head waitress was basically taking care of this group. And usually what they did is when a group scheduled, they would give them like a choice between two entrees. So I mean, everything was, the chef knew that, he's got 40 people coming, and this is what, 18 of them want this, and the other 22 want this, and that way it's pretty easy to take care of them. But anyway, she's waiting on them, and where we're standing, we can see through the gift shop of the hotel into the restaurant. There's just a big cased opening going into the restaurant. Maybe two sets of French, like bifold French doors or something. I can't really remember that could close it off, but when the restaurant was closed. But anyway, right at the table that we could see the best, and they'd lined up tables for this group in the restaurant. But right on this end, closest to the gift shop, they had set an elderly man there that was in a wheelchair. They'd moved the chair from the table and set his wheelchair, so he was right there at the end. And the waitress, and I'm trying real hard not to say her name because I don't want to embarrass her, but the waitress was waiting on him, and she had came down to that end of the table to refill everybody's water. And while she was at that end of the table, this old man, he's sitting in his wheelchair. He reached out and put his arm around her waist and kind of pulled her in tight and was kind of holding her. Well, John, yeah, I can go ahead and say his name. John said, "Bob, look at that." So I looked in there in the restaurant, and we could see her and see him. And he's sitting there, talking to her, shooting the shit. You know how old people, elderly, I should say, people are about flirting with waitresses. Oh my God, my dad used to do it all the time. Anyway, he's sitting there flirting with her, and the next thing you know, he got her around her waist, and he takes his hand, and he goes all the way down her butt, around to inside of her thigh, and right down her thigh. Well, she turned and looked at us, and I swear to God, her eyes were big as silver dollars. And I thought me and John both were going to die laughing. We were trying to get where nobody could see us, because we just fucking lost it. I did. And she come out there and she was like, "Oh my God, I got violated." It's like, yeah, you did. And it's like, it just amazes me sometimes how daring some of these old people get. Elderly people, I should say elderly. I'm sorry. But anyway, it just cracked us up to no end. But that's one of the funnier things that happened at the hotel while I worked there. The other thing I was going to tell, and I don't know how to say this exactly, and I don't want to make nobody mad, but I was working the front desk one night, and we had another group in the restaurant eating, and there was actually two buses full, and their tour buses were parked out front, and it was a Baptist church group that was inside the restaurant eating. Their buses were parked out there in the parking lot. Well, I'm standing behind the front desk, and this guy comes in, and I am not kidding either. He's probably in his 60s, and he's got snow white hair, but it's styled, and it's long in the back, and it's piled up real high, and I mean, there's not a hair out of place. And when he comes in, he's got his little polo shirt on. He's got like cargo shorts, really nice, expensive, like slip-on type dress shoes. He's got the big gold watch and rings on his hands, and he is tan. I'm talking about like go to the tanning booth tan is what I'm talking about. This guy, I shit you not, looks right off the TV. I mean, if there's ever been anybody, forgive me for saying this, that looked like a TV evangelist, he looked the part. I mean, he looked it. So he comes in and he comes up to the front desk. He says, "Do you mind if I go in?" I'm trying to think this story through before I tell it to make sure I don't step on too many toes. But he says, "Do you mind if I go in and talk to the church group that's eating in the restaurant?" And I'm like, "No, I don't care. If they don't mind, I don't mind. You know, it doesn't matter to me." So he goes in the restaurant, and he's probably in there 30 or 40 minutes, if I had my guess. So he comes back out to the front desk, and he's like, "I just want to thank you for letting me go in and talk to the church group." I'm like, "Hey, it's no problem. You know, it's whatever you want to do. I'm good with that." And here comes the pitch. He says, "Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, you sure can." He's like, "Do you go to church?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do. Because at the time I did. I honestly did." He said, "Where do you go?" And I said, "Well, I go to Towering Oaks over in Burwell." And just so everybody gets this straight, if you're from Arkansas and you say Berryville, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. It's Burwell. I don't give a shit what anybody says. It's Burwell. Anyway, just like it's Fayetteville. He said, "So where you go to church?" And I said, "I go to Towering Oaks over there in Burwell." He said, "What denomination is that?" And I said, "What's non-denominational?" He went, "Pentecostal." I was like, "No, sir, it's non-denominational." And he's like, "I know, Pentecostal." I'm like, I don't understand what you mean by that. He said, "Well, just so you know," he said, "most non-denominational church, or no," he said, "the non-denominational churches are just Pentecostal churches in disguise trying to get you in the front door." Now, number one, I don't know what this guy had against Pentecostal churches, but apparently in his whatever raising he was in, he had a problem with Pentecostal churches. I said, "No." I said, "Our church is non-denominational." He's like, "I know, Pentecostal." I said, "No." I said, "Here's the deal." I said, "Our pastor is actually a Baptist minister." And I said, "He started the non-denominational church because he wanted to get all denominations. He wanted it to be open to anybody who wanted to worship, any denomination." Literally, this is what he said. He said, "Well, if that's true, then yours is the one exception to the rule." And I'm like, oh my God, did he really just say that? So I wasn't going to argue with him, and I wouldn't argue with anybody about it today, but that was his stance, was I went to a Pentecostal church, whatever his problem with Pentecostals was, because he had a bad one, apparently. Maybe he'd had a bad, what do you call that, bad episode at a Pentecostal church. I don't know. It's crazy. But he was dead set that that's what I went to. Gonna move on now from the hotel because there's still more stories I could tell. Should I? Yeah, I'll tell one more. We'll do one more hotel story. Today's going to be a lot of funny stories. Now, I know the last one wasn't, but they have weekends in Eureka Springs where different things are happening. And one of the big weekends is Blues Weekend. They have a lot of people in town. Usually all the hotels are filled up. And, people get a little rowdy during Blues Week. And I'm going to say something else. At the time that I worked there, I normally, if I didn't work 3 to 11, because sometimes we didn't work an 11 to 7 shift, I would either work 3 to 11 or I'd work 11 to 7, especially during the heavy weekends. We'd put on a third shift, and that's what I would work just to make sure, everything was good during the week or good there at the hotel on the grounds because I'd walk the grounds every hour. But I literally never had any problems out of anybody other than youth groups. We had, Mustang groups and Chevrolet groups, Corvette groups, bikers, church groups, the people that were there for Blues Festival, and the only ones I ever had trouble out of were youth groups. And it's like, as soon as their chaperones would go to bed, these kids would run buck-ass wild around the hotel, and then I'd start getting the phone calls at the front desk about people in the pool being nosy or people out on one of the decks partying. And it was always these youth groups, and I'd have to go wake up the chaperones and say, y'all got to take care of these kids. You can't just let them run around here buck wild at 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, during Blues Week, after it was over, the Matterhorn owner and general manager came down to the hotel one afternoon. He walked in and he's like, "Hey Bob, how's it going?" I said, "Pretty good." He said, How was Blues weekend?" I said, "It's pretty good." He said, "Have any problems here at the hotel?" And I'm like, "No, not a one." Didn't, I said, I ran one couple out of the hot tub after hours. Other than that, that was it. I said, "Do you have any problems?" He goes, "Yeah, I did." And normally he kind of did the same thing. He didn't have anybody working the front desk after 11 o'clock. But it being Blues weekend and pretty, a lot of people in town, he would work that 11 to 7 shift himself, just so somebody was there up and awake and making sure everything was copacetic around the grounds. Well, where his desk was at, there was a glass door behind him, and it went out into the pool area. Well, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I think's about what time it was, he heard somebody jump in the pool. He literally heard the water splash. So he went out there because the pool was locked, so they had to climb over the fence to get into the pool anyway. Well, he went out there, and there was a couple out there, man and the woman. They was both butt-ass naked, buck-ass naked, I guess is what I should say, in the pool. Well, he made them get out and go back to their room because they was both drunk anyway, so the last place they needed to be was in the pool. So he said he got them out, he unlocked the gate and let them out so they could go back to their room, and he locked the gate back. He went back in the office, and he said, "Bob, my butt hadn't hit the chair good till I heard somebody jump in the pool again." He said, "First thing I thought is, they're back out there in the pool." And he said, "I'm going to kick them out of the hotel this time. I'm going to load their shit in their car and send them down the road at 1 o'clock in the morning." He said he walked out there, and he said it was a completely different couple, buck-ass naked in the pool. So his hotel got apparently a little wilder than ours did on Blues weekend. But that kind of shit happened a lot down there at the hotels in Eureka Springs. We're going to move on, and I wanted to talk because I started thinking this week, and in a conversation with some people about mudding, because we talked a lot about it last weekend and kind of its effect on my life, or that I did a little bit of it when I was growing up, that kind of stuff. And it got me thinking about a buddy of mine that didn't live too far from me, and I wanted to tell 2 stories on him today. And I dearly love both these stories. One of them is funny, and the other one scared the shit out of me. And I'm going to tell that one first. And to set this whole story up, we had a double-wide trailer. And on the eastern side of our trailer, our trailer faced north. So on the eastern side of the trailer, there was a big, I don't even know what you call it. Call it a drainage ditch, or we call it a wash, or whatever. But basically, the the road that I lived on, and I told y'all about out in front of my house, it was wide enough I could drive my truck down in it. And it was the same where it turned and came down my property line. And basically everything on that road when it would rain went into that ditch. And that's, by the time it got down to my place, it was pretty wide. And it'd be dry normally, but if it was raining, it was rolling pretty good. Well, that ditch was my property line, or actually the western side of it was my property line. And if you went on the far side of it, where it went back up, that's somebody else's property, but nobody lived over there. As a matter of fact, I don't even think it was sold. A company, I was trying to think what his name was. His last name was McDougal, and y'all all know him because he was involved in the Whitewater shit with the Clintons. His wife's name was Susan, and I was trying to think what the name of it was a savings and loan that he owned there in Little Rock, and they actually owned the property at the time. But there was a big old southern yellow pine tree right. It was in line with the end of my trailer, but this thing was dead. It didn't have a piece of bark on it, and hadn't put any pine needles on. What few pine needles were left on it were brown, and hadn't put any green sprouts on it like 2 years. And I don't know if y'all know this or not, but when pine dies, it rots pretty fast. So I kept looking at that thing thinking, man, if that thing ever falls because it's on the bank of that creek or whatever you want to call it, it's going to fall right towards my trailer. So I got home one day and I had a brand new Chevrolet pickup. It was the same one I got stuck in the ditch. It's a 90 model. Pulled it in my front yard. And I got me a rope and got it up in that tree pretty far and then ran it over and tied it to the front bumper of that truck or to the tow hooks. Well, I had a buddy that lived about, 3 or 4 miles from me. We'll just call him Mark because that really is his name. So I called Mark and I'm like, dude, are you home? And he's like, yeah. I said, can you come down there and help me for a minute? He's like, sure. So he comes down there. I said, all you got to do is get in my truck and back it up a little bit and get tension on that rope. And I said, I'm going to notch this tree and then cut it. And I said, you just make sure it falls the correct way and keep it falling away from my house. I said, I'm pretty good at this anyway on my own, but I said, this a little too close for comfort for me. He's like, all right. And I said, second thing is, once it starts falling, don't quit backing up because my rope ain't that long. He's like, oh, okay, I can do that. I'm like, all right. I said, now seriously, when it starts falling, you keep backing up. He's like, all right, Bob, I'll do it. So we get the rope, a little tension put on the rope, and I notched that tree down pretty low, falling the way I wanted it to fall. Got around behind it and started cutting through it. Well, it started falling, and it was, like if my trailer was sitting here, I wanted that tree to fall this way. Well, it started falling and going the way I wanted it to go. Well, he stopped. Well, when he stopped, I know my eyes got this big around. And literally the very top of that tree brushed the hood and the front bumper. And I probably called him everything but a white boy. But I was scared to death. I thought it was going to go, that tree's going to fall right in the center of my damn truck. And I sure didn't want that. I could just imagine a big old crease in my hood right in the middle of it. Bam! So, the second thing I want to tell about Mark is where he lived. He lived in the corner of 2 gravel roads where gravel road teed into another. He lived over in this corner. Well, when he moved in, he bought him a single wide trailer and moved in there. He cut him a circle drive between them 2 gravel roads, and then set his trailer on an angle in that circle drive. Well, in behind him back there, he had some dog pens with his dogs back there in that pen. Well, he called me one day, and now he lived over in actual Maple Creek Farms. I think he had 5 acres he'd bought over there. Now, I'm telling y'all, this place wasn't much more than a swamp anyway. So when it was raining, there wasn't a lot of bottom in this thing. So he called me one afternoon. It's probably 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's raining like fucking hell. He's like, Bob, I got a problem. I'm like, all right, what is it? He said, the company he worked for was a rubber specialty company. And he had a conveyor belt to take the International Paper Company plant in Pine Bluff, the IP plant in Pine Bluff. Well, he loaded it on a 1-ton truck. This thing weighed about 1,500 pounds. I mean, it's a pretty big old piece of rubber. Took up this whole flatbed pickup, 1-ton flatbed, dually. So they loaded it on that because we lived in the east end of Pulaski or Saline County, so right off the Pine Bluff Highway. So he was just going to get up the next morning and drive this conveyor belt down there to the IP plant. Well, he pulled in his yard and he got to thinking, man, I got this conveyor belt and it's worth a lot of money if you got something that you need a conveyor belt for. But he got this wild idea, and this was out in the boonies, y'all. He got this wild idea somebody might mess with that conveyor belt. So he decided he was going to back that 1-ton truck down there beside his dog pens, which he did. Well, as soon as he stopped, the back end of that truck with all that weight on it just sat down. Well, it just had regular tires on it. It wasn't like it had mud tires. It wasn't 4-wheel drive anyway. And all it was doing is just sitting back there spinning. So he called me. So I went down there, and like I've said before, I had a 90 model Chevrolet, and it was during the fall of the year, so it was during deer season. So I had my buckshot mutters on. And I pulled up there. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to get that truck out of there. I said, well, I think I can pull you out. I said, let's pull my truck down there and we'll hook onto it and see what we can do. So I had about a 25-foot logging chain. So I pulled down there right up to his truck. I hooked that chain on to the front of his truck and got the slack pulled out of it. And I told him, I said, now, you get in that truck, you start it up, put it in drive, and I said, now when we get started, if I start pulling you, I'm going all the way to the gravel road. I'm not going to stop in your driveway. I'm going all the way to the gravel road. We're going to get you completely up out of this. And I would have to go to the gravel road just to get him up in his driveway. He's like, all right, let's go. So get up my Chevrolet, and I throwed that sumbitch down there in 4 low and stuck it in 2nd gear. And bumped the clutch a little bit, and then I started spinning, and we started moving forward. And buddy, when we started moving forward, I shot the juice to it. I'm not too sure that I can grab another gear, but we went all the way to the gravel road, and them big old buckshots were digging. And I dug 2 big ruts through his yard and covered his truck in mud. It was the funniest shit you ever seen. He was at least grateful. He wasn't mad about it, but we covered his truck. And I told him, I said, Mark, nobody's going to mess with that conveyor belt. Don't do that again. Pull out there by your dog pen just so your dog will bark if anybody messes with that conveyor belt. Beats all the hell I've ever seen. That being said, because I like saying that being said, I told my son this week, I don't think he wants me to tell you all this, but I like hearing myself talk. I don't know if anybody else does or not. Before I go on with my next little story, my next little tidbit, it's a good time to take a little break and tell y'all, make sure you follow us on Facebook. Make sure you join the Bumpkin Army, and make sure you follow us over at Twitter at Bumpkin Bob Show. Make sure you email us or go over there to the Bumpkin Army page and post on there and tell us your job site tales. I want to hear your job site tales. I want to tell a few of yours on the air. And also, while you're over there, help me out and post your top 5 Westerns. I want to see what yours are. And I think what's going to end up happening is I'm still not going to be able to figure out what mine are. I keep flip-flopping back and forth. Talking about the mud stuff, had a conversation this week, and we're going to start throwing this out there, maybe talking about it a little bit. Had a conversation with a buddy, and then I had a conversation with my son a little bit. But there's a deal that goes on. It started up in Oregon called the Gambler 500. And the old Bumpkin would kind of like to compete in that next year. Not in Oregon. They're actually been holding one here in Arkansas. So we're going to start doing a little research into that. Maybe my son even thought it might be cool if, as Bumpkin Bob's show, Bumpkin Army, maybe we could put at least 2 teams in there, and the team would be a driver and one other person. It's a 2-day event. You cover about 500 miles in the Ozark Mountains, and it's gravel roads and paved roads and dog trails and a little bit of everything else. And the whole deal is you're supposed to do it with a vehicle that you bought for $500 or less. I'm not sure we'll actually do that. I think it's growing to the popularity that people are running some vehicles that are actually made for that kind of stuff, which kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit. But I want everybody to be thinking about that. We're going to try to do that. Maybe put a couple of teams in it next year. I'm not sure that I'll actually drive or ride shotgun, but I would like to go to it. And my buddy was wanting to put the El Camino. He went so far the other day that he looked up the wheelbase of an El Camino and started looking up wheelbases of other vehicles that were actually 4-wheel drive to see if we could put that El Camino body on a 4-wheel drive chassis. I don't think we're going to do that, not go quite that far, but maybe we can come up with a pretty cool vehicle to run in that. My son said he thought it'd be pretty cool if we could run like a Samurai, a Geo Tracker, one of those, maybe a Zuzu Rodeo. Maybe we could pick one of them up cheap, put some 31s or 33s on it or something, and run one of them in it and see if we can do some good. It's really not a race per se. It's more of just having fun and seeing a lot of things that you might not normally see. So if anybody's got information on it, of course, hit us up about that because we want that information. And if you got any ideas, hit us up about that. And again, kind of in our little group of people that we deal with kind of on a daily basis, friends and family, we're going to try to put maybe 1 or 2 teams together to go participate in that next year. Because I think they hold it usually in September every year, August, September, probably September, and see if we can't compete in that. It'd be kind of fun. We all thought it'd be pretty fun to do, which I hope it is. Don't forget that today, this afternoon, your beloved Arkansas Razorbacks travel to South Carolina to play the Gamecocks. They did win last week. Woohoo! Go Hogs! Woo Pig! They did a good job against New Mexico State, so they have an excellent chance of winning today. South Carolina is kind of down. They've lost some frontline people, so offensive line people. So hopefully our defense can put some pressure on their quarterback, and hopefully we can continue to put some points on the board like we did last week. really hope that continues to happen. I am really rooting for Dan Enos and Paul Rhodes as our offensive and defensive coordinators, and Brad. I mean, I'm rooting for him as head coach. I hope they continue to build on what they did last week. I got tickled this week. One of the sports shows, their poll question was between us and LSU. Who do you think has the best shot of reaching 8 wins this year? And, it's like they said, neither one of them may reach 8 wins, but they wanted to know which one had the best shot. I'm like everybody else now. I'm thinking Arkansas's got as good a shot as anybody, or as good a shot as LSU does, of reaching 8 wins. But it starts today. They have to win against South Carolina, or I honestly don't think they can get 6 wins if they can't beat South Carolina. To me, that's where it starts. I know we've ran pretty long on time already. I told several stories. I just love telling those stories about that kind of shit. It gives me a chuckle on the inside. NFL shit's been kind of quiet this week. Hadn't really had a lot going on there. I think the tragedy, and it is a tragedy that took place in Las Vegas last weekend, has pretty well shut all that shit down as far as the NFL. Oh my God. I honestly, it's been on my mind all week. I know it has y'all. I honestly don't know what to say. It was crazy. We're getting inundated with so much information. There's several news agencies putting stuff out. There's several different law enforcement agencies putting stuff out. It's hard to know what's real and what's not. And it's hard to know who to believe and who not to. I'll be honest with you. As of our taping today, my own personal opinion is I don't know that we'll ever actually know what went on. People have raised so many questions this week about stuff. I even had a guy, and it kind of made me step back when he said on my job, as I'm sure it has y'all's, this has filled a lot of conversation time. I mean, I know in break rooms and lunch rooms around this nation, that's a lot of people have been talking about this. But as different information was coming out and different things were getting told, the one thing somebody said to me that made me kind of take a step back was they were like, who's to say that guy wasn't dead before the shooting even started? And it's like, okay, here comes the conspiracy theories. Did he act alone? Did he not? Did he actually do it? Was he dead before? The more stuff that comes out, the more that it goes through my mind that we may, as the American public, we may not ever know what actually happened. As of right now, I don't think they have a motive for him. That's another thing that's crazy. They don't have a motive. The other thing is, how do you get all that equipment and rounds of ammunition and up to that was it the 32nd floor? It's like, how did he get it all up there with nobody noticing? And how did he break that glass? I heard a report this week that there was a sledgehammer. I heard he shot it out. And the more I thought about it, it's like I would be willing to bet that stuff has to be some kind of earthquake proof. I mean, that's 30 stories up. That's not normal glass. It cannot be. And I told somebody, I said, it almost seems to me like it had to have been blown. I mean, that you see this shit in Hollywood movies where they'll pick up a chair, throw it through a hotel window, and then grab a fire hose and jump out the fucking window. That shit's fake, people. Number one, they're not going to throw a chair through that fucking window. There ain't no way in hell. I'll kiss your ass if they can. And the second is, you're not going to grab the fire hose and jump out the freaking window, tie it around your waist, and bail out the window. That's bullshit too. That being said, it's mind-boggling. How did he break that window or windows? Because there's two of them broke out. It's like, to me, it almost seems like it'd have to be blown, because if he stood in there with a sledgehammer beating on it, you would think somebody would have heard that. I mean, it's beyond my belief on how all this got done. Again, I don't know that we'll ever know exactly what happened. I hope we do. It is a tragedy. My thoughts and prayers go out to families who lost people or who had people that are injured. It was senseless. It really was. And now I'm going to touch on something that I was asked this week by a family member, because I've said it before. I'm conservative and I believe in guns. I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment. And they asked me point blank, they're like, well, what do you think about assault rifles now? So, put a lot of thought into this. And I'm going to take some heat from it. I know I am. It's just how it is. But, and if I'm wrong on my Second Amendment opinions, you can call me on it. Because, the statement was also made to me this week that when our forefathers did the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms, that they didn't have assault weapons in mind. Well, yeah, they kind of did. Because if you stop and think about it, the main reason they wrote that in there was to protect us from them. Anybody understand what I'm saying? It's like from a tyrant government, I guess. That's why we fought against the King of England. During that time, the late 1700s, the musket, cap and ball, I don't think they were still flintlocks. I think we were up to cap and ball by then, maybe. Even if it was a flintlock. Hell, even if it was a blunderbuss. During that time, that was the assault rifle of that time. That's what your military people carried. I truly believe in my heart that they wanted, because it's past tense, they wanted their public, their base, to be armed with the same thing their military was armed with, strictly to keep their military from attacking its own people. A rogue senator or whatever attacking his own community. So when they say that they don't believe that the founding fathers had assault rifles in mind, I kind of think they did, because at that day and time, the weapon they were using, the same weapon that people hunted with, is what the military was carrying. And that's what they meant. So today, I believe the same thing. There again, I also really, truly don't believe in my heart, and it's my opinion, that not an AK-47, but an AR-15, I don't believe that these are actually assault weapons. I think they're built to look like assault weapons, but I don't think they're actually military grade. Maybe I'm wrong. I know I've got people that are, family and friends that can set me right on that. But I don't believe that they are. And as far as that goes, fully automatic. Everybody keeps saying semi-automatic. That's another thing that pisses me off. Hey, a 30-06 with a scope on it that's as people will say, is automatic. It's not bolt action. That is a semi-automatic. You got to pull the trigger every time to fire another round. What that guy was shooting was an automatic weapon. And that's not the same as what you can go down here to an Atwoods or a Sears store or Cabela's or Bass Pro and buy. You cannot buy fully automatic weapons. Those are already illegal. You can't have them. You're not supposed to have them. So you can't tell me that the guy that goes down here to his local gun store and buys an AR-15 chambered in .223, that it's an assault rifle. I just don't believe that. And even if it is, I think our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, Second Amendment, is actually set up to cover that. Because again, I think when they wrote it, they meant for the public to be armed just like the military. Because at that day and time, the cap and ball, the musket, whatever, it was the assault rifle of that time. That's just bottom line. And so there I've done it. I've put myself out there on my opinion. I'm sure there are going to be people that watch this that are going to tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine. We should all have that right. I mean, if you feel I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. If I feel you're wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong. That's, again, we're back to free speech, and, we've all got it, and we all get to exercise it. And just because you get to say it doesn't mean you're right, and it doesn't mean people can't call you on it. So, to me, that's something some of those guys in the NFL need to learn. Just because it's your right to do it doesn't mean that I feel like it's the right thing to do, and doesn't mean I can't call you on it. That's just bottom line. Now, again, my heart broke when I heard about it. I honestly, when I heard about the events at the Jason Aldean concert, my heart broke. And I know everybody else's did too. But, this is the world we live in. And I'm going to tell you something else. And I truly believe this. I know everybody thinks I get up here and I tell people, I just spout this shit off the top of my head. I do to a certain extent, but I also do my research. And I read this week that, and this is the way I kind of look at me and the guy next door and the guy that lives down the street and the guy that lives across town having guns in our home, knowing how to use them and being responsible. This is why I think they're there. I read a story this week that during World War II, the Emperor of Japan wanted to invade mainland U.S. I mean, he wanted to put boots on the ground. And he got talked out of it, I think, by his Secretary of Navies, who actually talked him out of it. But he got talked out of it because the guy basically told him, you put troops on the ground in the U.S., you're going to have a gun pointed at you behind every blade of grass. And that's the truth. You stop and think of all the wars we fought except for the Civil War, and the Revolutionary War, modern times, I guess I should say. Nobody's put boots on the ground in the U.S. because they know. Every redneck, every radical, every hunter, every good person, every bad person, everybody's got guns, whether they obtain legally or not. And I would pretty much say that you put boots on the ground in the U.S. as far as being a foreign invading force, you're going to have hell to pay, because you're not just going to be facing the regular Army or the regular Marines or the Navy or the Air Force. You're going to be facing every person in the United States that has a gun. You know, if you want to invade somebody, go invade Australia. The only thing you got to worry about is like 14 poisonous spiders, the most poisonous snakes, crocodiles. I mean, I think everything in Australia except people can kill you. So that's what you got to worry about down there. The U.S., you got to worry about everybody's got a gun, whether it's a 22 for plunking or squirrel hunting to people having AR-15s, which, again, I'm still on the fence about them being an actual assault rifle. We can argue that all day long if you want to. I don't know that I've said anything that hadn't already been said. It's just the way I feel. And I'll tell you right now, because I talked about sending you over YouTube to watch that mom buying school supplies being funny. Go to YouTube and look up, and he's probably the person you're going to least suspect about this. But out of all the stuff I watched this week and listened to and read, the one that kind of summed it all up was Chuck Woolery. And you all know him as a game show host. But go over there and look up his video, and I think he gives you 10 reasons for the Second Amendment and not having gun restrictions. He says it better than I'll ever say it. So if you get a chance, go over there and watch that. See if you can find it on YouTube. Chuck Woolery. Was trying to think. I think he did Wheel of Fortune first. And he's had several other game shows that he was the host on. So go over there and look him up. He really does a good job in saying all that. I'm going to get out of here for the day. We're fixing to get ready to watch the Razorbacks. They play at 3 o'clock this afternoon. South Carolina, don't miss it. Kind of wrap up, gave some birthdays this week. Again, my prayers go out to Gary Ware and to Ralphie May's family, 2 Arkansans we lost this week. My heart goes out to all the people in Las Vegas that got killed and are injured during all that. Let's keep each other in our prayers and thoughts. Again, if you got any information on that Gambler 500, hit us up. We really want to try to do something in that next year. And just be good to each other this week. Is the best way I could say it. And to end the show, let's do Go Hogs, Woo Pig. How about them hogs? That's for you, Randy and Carrie. Anyway, this is October 7th, and this is Bumpkin Bob. We're out.